We will now, we're going to take something out of order. We have some folks with some time issues. So I'd like to move to item 6, presentation of a proclamation to declare Pima County a zero-tolerance human trafficking zone. Supervisor Miller.
I'll move the item.
Motion and a second. Any objections? Hearing none, motion carries. Supervisor Miller.
Okay, I'd just like to make a couple of statements first. First, I'd like to thank everyone for being here today, especially Congresswoman McSally, to show support for the issue of human sex trafficking in Arizona and across the country. It impacts all of our communities, whether you're in the state, national, or local level. I had the honor of being invited to participate in a forum a few weeks ago that local leaders could discuss the issue and how it impacts our community. In fact, although the state representative Victoria Steele and Councilman Steve Kozachik weren't able to make today's meeting, they were both actively taking action on this issue. I've been working with Councilman Kozachik on connecting with the education community and moving this forward. We are still working on that. It's going to be a task force, and if anybody's interested in helping out, I'll take all the help I can get. I'd just like to read a statement from Councilman Kozachik that he wanted me to read into the record. I'm grateful to Supervisor Miller and to the rest of the Board of Supervisors for engaging in this immensely important community issue. As your resolution suggests, everybody's kids are vulnerable to being trafficked regardless of income, ethnicity, or age. The message we need to send is very simple. Our kids are not for sale. If you try to buy one, you're going to jail. Thanks for taking this leadership position. Your action has my absolute full support. Steve Kozachik.
Congresswoman McSally. Yeah, we and I believe the Congresswoman has taken this lead at the national level on this issue, so we want to thank you for that leadership.
We had Deputy Nanos, Captain Dave Azuelo from TPD, Alan Goodwin, Amelia Kramer, and Kelly Johnson from the County Attorney's Office, Jerry Payton from Sold No More, Beth Jacobs from Willoway, Charlotte Pepper from Our Family Services New Beginnings Program, and then Adriana Charez, because she brought this issue to my attention in my first year in office, and her and Jerry Payton came to my office to visit to discuss this very important issue, and I was really glad to see that Representative McSally was taking some action on this, and there were several bills pending in Congress, so hopefully that moves forward. Now I'd like to read the proclamation. The proclamation is to declare Pima County a zero-tolerance human trafficking zone. Whereas we recognize that human trafficking is a growing problem in Pima County and that it is a crime which violates human rights and personal freedoms on the victims who are preyed upon. And whereas Pima County recognizes that human trafficking is a borderless crime that targets endangered, marginalized, at-risk children, women, men, and recruits or obtains through force or coercion for purposes of sexual exploitation, involuntary servitude, and other types of enslavement. And whereas human trafficking is present-day slavery and a clear violation of the 13th Amendment of the United States Constitution, with traffickers taking away basic human rights upon our country, was founded, and whereas the state of Arizona and the federal government have laws that prosecute human traffickers, we acknowledge that enforcement, prevention, and assistance to survivors is best when the public has broad awareness of the human trafficking issue in Pima County and nationwide. And whereas Pima County is committed to protecting individual freedoms and human rights by declaring a zero-tolerance zone for human trafficking and collaboratively working with local and federal law enforcement agencies and nonprofit organizations in support of eradicating human trafficking and helping victims to recover from this heinous crime. And whereas the Pima County Sheriff and Pima County Attorney, on behalf of Pima County, have taken a leadership role in educating law enforcement officers and the general community about the evils and prevalence of human trafficking, including both sex trafficking and labor trafficking, and have been leaders in the Southern Arizona Human Trafficking Working Group, And whereas Pima County opposes all forms of human trafficking and encourages support for those who have survived so that human trafficking victims can have their freedoms and dignity restored, and to put an end to human trafficking activity in Pima County in the state of Arizona and across the world. Now therefore be it proclaimed that the Pima County Board of Supervisors designates Pima County as a zero-tolerance human trafficking zone and will ensure the sheriff and county attorney continue to have sufficient resources to interdict and prosecute any individuals who are involved in criminal activity of human trafficking, and applauds the efforts of other organizations and individuals and governing bodies who raise awareness of and work to actively put an end to human trafficking. I'd like to thank everyone, as I said before, and I want to turn this over to Congresswoman McSally for comments. Thank you.
Well, thank you, Supervisor Miller. I really appreciate your leadership. I appreciate the support of the whole Board of Supervisors here and everybody who's represented. I will be brief. Look, we've got to work together to address this scourge. As we saw in our roundtable that we had a few weeks ago, there are elements that are responsibility of at the federal level, some at the state, county, and local officials, law enforcement, the nonprofit and the faith community, those who are providing help to the victims. There's an education piece, a prevention piece, an awareness piece, and we all are a part of the solution. We got to do our part. Most people think trafficking is happening somewhere in a faraway place, but it's happening right here under our noses, in our community, in our neighborhoods. These are our kids, these are our vulnerable men and women, young boys and girls. And so we've got to make sure people understand that what it is and what it is not, and we've got to be able to prevent it, stop it, prosecute it, have the teeth and have the resources for those who are investigating, trying to get out in front of these networks, and also care for the victims as they're being pulled out of a horrible lifestyle that is very complex and has long-lasting implications. So it's my commitment to join with everybody here and those who are not represented here. We've got to work together on this issue. We had 12 bills passed in the House a few weeks ago to address various elements of it. There's more work to be done. So let's work together. This is certainly an area that can unite us as a community, and I really appreciate the leadership of Ally and the team here today and everybody involved in order to have no tolerance. And I stand with you today. Thank you.
Madam Chair, Board of Supervisors, Congresswoman McSally, thank you so much for this opportunity, and more importantly, thank you for bringing this up. I know this has been out in the forefront for quite a while, but I want to speak about something that most don't know, and there's a lot of myths and misperceptions or misconceptions when we think of human trafficking. It's easy for us to think of the dark, shadowy pimp in the background and hiding off with 5 or 6 kids and bringing them out for sale, or the online trappers. All of these things are of concern. But the real issue, when you drill down into this, is a number of these kids, and they are kids, over 300,000 of them across the nation. Some of these kids are 11, 12, 13 years old. But the real concern is they're actually sexualized through abuse, sexual abuse from family and others at an earlier age of 5 or 6. And so we get them as law enforcement with the county attorney's office, and we prosecute those who offend them at that age, and hopefully get them the right family services that they need. And sometimes that's difficult. So I'm actually very excited to hear you say you've got a task force. I would greatly love to be a part of that. I think we put together a MIST unit that brought together all of those in the mental health community, to include the courts and the county attorneys and the law enforcement officials, to work with mental health. And I think we can do something similar to that in our tactics in dealing with human trafficking. It's not just a border issue, it's everyone's issue. 83% of those who have been found to be trafficked, who have been victimized by this, are U.S. citizens. So it's not just a border issue. This is everyone's issue, and it's nothing partisan. This is very nonpartisan. So thank you so much, and we'll work hard.
Amelia from the County Attorney's Office wanted to speak.
Thank you, Madam Chair, members of the board, Supervisor Miller and Congresswoman McSally, and law enforcement and all the nonprofit agencies. Pima County Attorney Barbara Lawal had asked that we just speak to applaud your efforts to join us with the Human Trafficking Working Group that's already begun with some law enforcement and prosecution folks on the county side and at the federal side to bring greater awareness to this issue. We have our Chief Criminal Deputy Kelly Johnson and the supervisor of our Special Victims Unit, Alan Goodwin, here. Alan's going to talk for about 2 minutes about some of the cases that we've seen in our office and what we're doing in terms of education, serving victims, and working with law enforcement.
Good morning. As Amelia said, I supervise the Special Victims Unit, so we prosecute cases involving victims who come from our most vulnerable populations, victims of sex offenses, our children, and increasingly victims of sex trafficking. We're very happy to be a part of the Human Trafficking Working Group with a lot of our law enforcement partners, some of whom are here today, and a lot of our social service providers as well. One thing about sex trafficking, it's different from a lot of other types of offenses, is that there's a lot of cases where all you need is a good patrol officer and a good prosecutor, and you have a good investigation, you have a good prosecution. Human trafficking is different. With human trafficking, you have to be specially trained to recognize what might be lurking behind the scenes and to look past the prostitution that oftentimes is what is most visible. The other part of it is that if you are not able to offer your victims some glimpse of hope, that there is something out there that is better than their current living situation, you're not going to have an investigation, you're not going to have a prosecution. So we're very happy that we have our social service provider partners as part of the working group. As we all know, we're right on the border. In addition to that, we're sitting right on top of two major thoroughfares, one coming from the border and the other connecting the west coast to major metropolitan areas to the east. But in addition to being a thoroughfare, we're starting to see that Tucson and Pima County is becoming a destination for human trafficking and sex trafficking. That being the case, we're very, very happy that we are now a zero-tolerance community and that everybody has joined together to help fight this plague on our society. So thank you for letting us be a part of Proclamation Day.
Thank you. And I believe Congresswoman McSally has an appointment at 9:30, and we're approaching that time, so. Yeah.
Anyone else wish to speak?
As a father of a sex trafficking victim here in Tucson and the founder and director of an organization fighting that, I can tell you this is our problem. These are our kids. The focus of Soul No More, I'm glad to hear about your task force, is education of our children and parents. We go into about 1,000 kids a month now in schools. And when we do, there are almost always girls that will step forward and share that that's what's happening to them at home. And the teachers don't know. As we go into the social service agencies, the medical colleges, and speak and teach and train them on how to recognize victims, they always discover that they've had these victims coming through their doors and didn't know it. So education to us is absolutely essential and primary, and that's why we're excited that the county's taking this on. Thank you.
Did anyone else have any reports? Agent Moore?
Thank you all. As a mother of 3, 2 daughters and a son, I want to tell you that these are our children, and we must do everything that we possibly can to make sure that they're aware of their surroundings, of everything. We don't want them living in we don't want them living a life of fear, but awareness is what we're trying to bring.
Thank you, Adriana. Anyone else wishes to speak? Okay, thank you all for being here. I think we need a